Yeah, we just continue on. Yeah, we're heading right into the justified content area, and it will actually revisit something we talked about earlier, the main axis and the cross axis, because this is where there will be many more reasons to think about whether or not you have a flex direction of row or a flex direction of column. Now, we can see the justified content item down here, and we can see on the screen that we have, for some reason, there is like some extra space between each of those, even though I set gap to be 1. So let's discern why this is happening. First off, we're going to look at the items and we see whether we are not allowing them to grow, and we've set them to be 20%. So we know for a fact now that they're taking up 20% each. 20% each should allow for what? It should be allowing for an extra item in there, right? It should be allowing for a 5th item. Now, we know, now I think most of you know, if you do not know what I'm talking about, you know that rem also takes up space, so we can actually not get all those items. We don't have the space available for it, because 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 get to 500. And then we get 1 rem plus 1 rem, 1 rem times 4. And it gets to 100% plus 4 rem in this case, which is not the amount of space we have. So instead of pushing that in, it wraps to the next line, and we keep them at 4 up here. And then we enter this one. I'm going to remove this. You'll see what I'm talking about. It stacks to the left. It's because from the very beginning, this has a default value as well. I think you see there, flex start. It's the same thing. This is what happens. We are saying it should start from the left, or the flex. We should start from the starting direction of the flex direction. So the flex start depends on the flex direction. You could have row reverse up here. Then flex start means the opposite way around, starting from the right. And then if we have column reverse, it also changes things. Now it says flex start. So it goes after the main axis and it plays that. We can have flex end as well. And nothing's really weird. I mean, I got everything pushed here to the right, but still the number order is correct. As of the last time, you said flex start, and I go up here and I say row reverse. Look at the numbers. The numbers and the get reversed. So you start by taking the first row is still the right numbers, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, but in the wrong direction, starting from the right. So row reverse is actually reversing the way things each row. It flips its so it starts in the opposite order. While it stays at a flex start, it is the start is right now to the right. And now I could also go flex end, and then suddenly everything is really weird, because I'm starting to the left, but the starting number is in reverse. I almost never use this kind of thing that you see right here, but I want to show you that everything is what flex end and flex start means, and there's more values inside there, actually depends on the flex direction. And the flex direction can also go, we can do it, really strange here. We could go with saying column, that becomes a column, and it's 1 to 12. I could go column reverse. Now everything is basically taking the 12 first and ending with 1. Fine. Let's go back to column, and everything looks great. But if I, let's say, had a value of sorts to work on, I'm gonna try to see what I could do. Let's say we had flex spaces at 20%. Let's say I have 30 pixels. just to, I think, 50 pixels. I don't know. I want something that shows clearly. Yeah, cool. I got 60 pixels, so now each of them is larger. It couldn't shrink beyond the size of the content, so it's still, but 60 pixels, it gets larger. Now, and I have a height on the element, which is much larger. Let's say I have a height of 2000 pixels. Now, again, I never set height in pixels, extremely rarely though. You see now, the height is 2000 pixels. It starts at the very end of it, but in the right order. Just like it did in the rows. So now I can go flex start. It does what columns always does. Start in the beginning. This is the default. I could, but you see, now everything is flowing in the direction of the column. And this is the key. I want you to, write this down. Flex direction column now column has become the main axis. This is what I've done. It's the main axis. So therefore, justify content always follows the main axis. If I make it a row, it always follows the main axis. Again, in this case, it is in a row. That is, so everything follows that direction. So you have to kind of take into account what kind of direction you're in, because this one will only follow the direction, the main axis direction. So I'm going to remove that. I want to return this to 20%. I believe it was 20%. And this is set just the same as it was in the beginning, except for I had another value here. Let's talk about what kind of values they are. And you see, there are alignments and stuff you can do here, but you can have flex start, flex end. I think there's flex baseline also. It looks for the baseline of the text. That I don't use that a lot. I've used it once maybe in my life, but the thing that I use a lot is something called space between. There are like space between, space around, space evenly. Space between basically does this. It tells you that it stacks some of them just far to the left, as far to the left as you can, and then some of them far to the right. And then it distributes the available space that are left between those items so that it exists just between them. So this is a way of actually writing. If you have two items and you want one item to the left and one item to the right, you can just use space between, because then it's going to keep the one all the way to the left and the other one all the way to the right. And it's really neat that way. If you want something that is space around, it's going to not have an equal space between. It's going to have an equal space around them. You'll see what I mean. The one here has one space over here that is equal to what it has on the right side. And you say, no, this one is much larger. Yeah, that's much larger, but it's because the 2 has also as much space to the left and to the right. And therefore, this is the way it's going to behave. So it's uneven, but it's the same space around each number. But because these 2 spaces add up, these become double this space. There's a way to go around that space. We can go space evenly. And now the space around here may look smaller, but it's because of the border I've used. And it's the same size as this one and this one and this one. Cool. So there is a lot of things going on there. You can see how this could be of use. For example, a nav bar. A nav bar where a navigation bar on the top of the screen where you want to have a couple of links to the left and a couple of links to the right. For example, to the left, usually you find your home and your account and a lot of things there. You navigate in the website, but to the right, you might find a login and the settings and other stuff. So if you want to separate them, you could just put them in 2 groups and then use space between. And then the one group will be on the right and the other one will be on the left. Very neat. Now let's go down and look at what's going on here in CSS Grid. And we can see that we're actually encountering a very similar thing. It's a bit less code. And I think you'll see this repeat itself, that CSS Grid, since it's control everything from the parent, I don't have to write these values directly in the child. I can write it on the parent using the current template columns. Now I get 4 lines of code doing the same thing. Display grid, gap, 1 rem. We already know those, and we know grid template columns create a template for where the items should fill in. And it says there's going to be 4, and each is going to be 25%. And then I'm saying that justified content space between. I could have done this way, just to tweak it around. There would have been no space available between, because fractions is, like I said in the previous video, and if you don't remember it, you go back and watch it. Fractions, it takes up the available space. So now, there are different ways to do this. Sometimes you want this, sometimes you want them to take up the space. So depends on. So I think we're actually ready to go into the next thing, and where we will talk about the cross-axis and how you can actually think about that as well.